Some people collect coins. Caleb collected regrets, and tonight he was about to cash in the biggest one. The three fractured moons of Zirkarth 5 cast pale light over a city frozen in time. Ancient ruins whispered of civilizations long dead, while coalition prefab structures squatted on top of them like tumors, indifferent and cold. Caleb moved through the dust-choked streets with precision, boots silent, hood low, every week, same path, same hour, but not the same purpose. Tonight was the 20th anniversary of the execution that never ended, and he was here to end it. The central square loomed ahead, half devoured by time, half swallowed by the coalition's revisionist architecture. At its center stood the pole, and on it, suspended in eternal agony, was her, Soraya. They called her the Virian Witch, the Warning, the last of her kind. To Caleb, she was none of those things. She was the beginning. Her violet skin shimmered even after 2 decades in stasis. Her silver-white hair fanned around her face like threads of light, uncut and untouched. The stasis field kept her between breath and death, a prisoner who never aged, never healed, never died. He stopped exactly 15 paces away, same distance every time, close enough to see the pain etched into her face, far enough to not draw suspicion. The myths said anyone who touched her would die. Caleb had never believed in myths, not when he'd spent 20 years building a device designed to prove them wrong. His fingers brushed the hidden pocket inside his work jacket. The quantum decoupler rested there, humming faintly with anticipation. 5 years of stolen tech, whispered blueprints, and sleepless nights in his workshop. This was no ordinary act of rebellion. This was a resurrection. He checked his chronometer. 3:27. The patrol shift would rotate in 2 minutes. That gave him exactly 7 minutes alone with her. The coalition always relied on predictable fear to protect what they didn't understand. Tonight, that would be their downfall. He stepped forward. The moment his palm touched her arm, time bent. The air snapped like a broken circuit. Her markings flared from dim blue to blinding white. Her eyes flew open, violet, endless, and burning with forgotten galaxies. Her chest heaved with a gasp that sounded like it had been waiting a century to be exhaled. The shockwave was instant. Energy burst outward in a pulse of light that shattered the windows around the square and silenced the city's electrical hum. Zirkarth 5 plunged into darkness. Caleb stumbled backward, but only for a second before surging forward again, catching her as the stasis clamps disintegrated into ash. She collapsed into his arms, weightless, alive, and very much aware. "I've got you," he murmured, his voice steadier than his pulse. "I've got you." Her eyes darted wildly, her lips forming words in a language that hadn't been heard in centuries. Fluid, musical, ancient. He didn't understand the syllables, but he understood the panic. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe. We need to move." Sirens began to rise in the distance, too fast. He'd triggered more than just a stasis failure. He'd triggered a protocol, maybe even a war. Soraya's fingers clutched weakly at his jacket. Her gaze found his. "Who are you?" she whispered in broken galactic common. Caleb's reply was simple, and terrifyingly true. "No one you were ever meant to meet. But now that you have, everything is about to change." The sirens were louder now, echoing like screams down the shattered alleyways. Caleb didn't stop. With Soraya in his arms, he sprinted through the western district, what was once a temple quarter, now reduced to fractured archways and desecrated murals. Coalition boots pounded behind them, but none matched his speed or precision. He moved like someone who'd mapped these ruins 1,000 times, because he had. He ducked through a narrow breach in a half-collapsed wall, emerging into a hidden courtyard, swallowed by ivy and shadow. Safe. For the moment. He laid Soraya gently against the base of a crumbling pillar. Her breathing was ragged. Her skin, though still radiant, glistened with sweat. The ceremonial dress clung to her like a second skin, ornate, impractical, and useless in the cold. She blinked up at him. "Where?" "Shelter," Caleb said, already scanning the perimeter. "Temporary. We'll move again in 2 minutes." She sat up abruptly. "Number... Not until you answer." He turned to face her, tone flat. "We don't have time for questions." I make time, she snapped. You woke me. You knew what I was. You had the device. Who are you? Her accent was strange, laced with inflections from a language no longer spoken. Her voice was music, layered over steel. Caleb, he said. Technician. Repair specialist. She snorted. You handle quantum interference like a soldier. You navigate ruins like a thief. And you lifted me with arms that didn't tremble once. Her eyes narrowed. No ordinary technician. Caleb didn't flinch. What does it matter? You're free. That's what counts. No, she said coldly. Freedom without context is just relocation. I need answers. A pause stretched between them. Caleb finally spoke. You were suspended in stasis for 2 decades. The Coalition used you as a symbol, a warning. I remember pain, she said quietly. I remember time not moving, but my thoughts did. They left me awake, didn't they? Yes. She closed her eyes. A tremor passed through her. When she opened them again, they burned with something ancient. Why? To break you. To erase your people, not just from history, but from memory. I'm the last. He hesitated. We don't know that. I do. For a long moment, the only sound was the distant whine of search drones and the crumbling of stone under stress. Then, Soraya tilted her head. You're not afraid of me. No, you should be. I've lived long enough to know monsters don't always wear alien skin, he replied. She studied him. You're hiding something. And you're scanning my thoughts. She blinked, caught off guard. I didn't mean don't. His voice was quiet but steel hard. My mind isn't yours to walk through. She recoiled, then narrowed her eyes. You have mental barriers. Human minds don't shield like that. He didn't answer. Her tone softened, just slightly. I was only trying to understand why you helped me. I don't need a reason to do the right thing. That's a lie, she said bluntly. No one risks death for a myth, unless the myth means something. Before he could respond, a flash of red scanned across the ruins. Searchlight. Caleb grabbed her hand, pulling her into motion. Later. They ran again, this time side by side. Her stride was shaky, but growing steadier. Her instincts kicked in, guiding her down the narrowest paths, under collapsed beams, through forgotten archways. Despite the years in stasis, her training hadn't died. As they emerged into a side corridor that once led to the inner sanctum of an ancient Virionon temple, she spoke again. You didn't hesitate to touch me. You knew the stories, that I kill anyone who comes close. I didn't believe them. Why? He glanced at her. Because I remember the child who risked everything to save something small and helpless. That's not the mark of a monster. Her steps faltered. She looked at him with new eyes. That happened. I know. They stopped before a sealed gate, half buried in stone, but still humming faintly. How do you know that? She asked, voice nearly a whisper. Caleb didn't answer. Not yet. Because the truth wasn't ready. And neither was she. The gate groaned as Caleb forced it open, ancient hinges protesting after centuries of silence. A gust of cool, stale air swept over them as they stepped inside. The corridor was narrow, carved into the rock itself, lit faintly by strips of old Virionon crystal embedded in the walls. Faint pulses of bioluminescence followed their steps, remnants of forgotten technology still clinging to life. Soraya paused, running her fingers along one of the crystal veins. This temple, it predates even the first concordat. Caleb didn't respond. He was too focused on the map inside his head, each turn, each passage memorized years ago during his secret visits. He led her deeper, descending spiral steps worn smooth by time. At the base of the stairwell he stopped, then knocked, 3 times, then 2. A panel in the wall slid open. A plasma rifle greeted them, held steady by a woman with a cybernetic arm and eyes that didn't miss details. About time, she muttered. We saw the blackout. Figured you finally did it. The rifle lowered. Soraya, Caleb said, motioning. This is Leora. She's a traitor, Leora cut in with a half smile. Former Coalition Special Forces. Current pain in their ass. Soraya's posture stiffened. You worked for them? Past tense, Leora said. I woke up, and I've spent the last 10 years making amends. More figures emerged from the shadows. Humans, yes, but also others. Species Caleb couldn't name, all bearing the same haunted look. Survivors, fighters, believers. One of them whispered, voice trembling, She's real. Leora waved them aside. This way. They followed her through a hidden passage that opened into a wide chamber beneath the ruins, an old sanctum converted into a hideout. Makeshift beds, old weapon racks, power cells salvaged from wreckage, and a wall-sized display flickering with data feeds from across the region. This is our forward base, Leora explained. We've been watching you for years, Caleb. Your weekly visits. The tech you were building. We knew something was coming. Soraya turned sharply. You were watching him? For protection, Leora said. You think he got this far without help? We've been running silent intercepts for years, blocking patrols, rerouting drones, but we couldn't act until you were awake. Soraya's expression shifted, part doubt, part cautious respect. And you believe in me? After everything your people did to mine? Leora didn't flinch. I believe in truth. And the truth is, you were sentenced not because you were a threat, but because you showed mercy, because you saved a human crew during the purge, and that terrified them more than any weapon ever could. The room fell silent. Soraya's voice trembled as she whispered, You remember? Leora nodded. We never forgot. And for the first time since awakening, Soraya's shoulders dropped. Not in defeat, but in relief. Because here, buried beneath the ruins of propaganda and lies, stood a fragment of what her people died trying to protect. Hope. Soraya stood at the center of the chamber, the hum of old Virion and tech vibrating faintly beneath her feet. Her hands trembled, but not from weakness. She looked at Caleb, truly looked at him. You knew about the rescue, she said. The one no one remembered but me. He didn't speak. You were there, weren't you? Still silence. You saw me as a child. Caleb exhaled slowly, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Never Prime, he said at last. Soraya's breath hitched. Yes, that was the colony. 374 years ago, he continued, eyes locked with hers. The Coalition, no, before them, the architects deployed me there under evaluation protocols. I was sent to monitor Virion and expansion, assess the colony, prepare for sterilization if needed. Her jaw clenched. So you were one of them. I was, he said, unflinching. Prototype Omega-7. First of my kind. Built to infiltrate, to observe, to decide if an entire people should be erased. The chamber tensed. Leora's hand hovered near her sidearm. Soraya didn't move. You never reported us, she said softly. I lied, Caleb said simply. I reported the colony as empty, said the evacuation was complete. I redirected the sterilization fleet. Why? His voice softened. Because I saw you. He didn't need to describe it. Because she remembered, too. The burning building, the shattered tower, the scream of a trapped animal, her small feet racing into danger while others fled. The way she crawled through fire to pull a creature barely larger than her hands into her arms. A crystal fox kit with a broken leg and frightened eyes. You risked your life, Caleb said, for something weaker than you. No logic, no advantage, just compassion. That's when you changed, she whispered. I broke protocol, and I never went back. Soraya stepped forward. So you've been hiding all this time? Waiting, he corrected. Planning. I took 100 names, 1,000 faces, never stayed anywhere long. But when I learned what they'd done to you, I couldn't run anymore. She stared at him, stunned. You watched me. Every week, he said. For 20 years. I couldn't break you out back then. Not without blowing my cover. But I could be there. Remind myself why I changed. Remind myself What mattered? And all this time, she trailed off, stepping even closer. I thought I was seeing ghosts in my dreams, a face, gray eyes, watching from the shadows. That was me. Her voice was barely a whisper. You were different then. He nodded. I was. Then she did something no one expected. She reached out and touched his face. The contact was electric, more than skin. It was memory, connection, resonance. Her hand slid over his jaw, and the flicker beneath his skin began to show, metallic veins glowing faintly in response to her presence. You're not just synthetic, she said. I'm not just anything anymore. A long pause. You changed your fate, she murmured. No, he replied. You did. I just followed. Leora exhaled, breaking the moment. Okay. I officially didn't sign up for this level of emotional tension between two high-powered fugitives. Caleb and Saria both laughed, quiet, short, but real. It broke the spell just enough for them to breathe, but not to forget. Saria turned toward the data wall. Then it's true. They didn't just want to punish me. They wanted to erase everything I stood for. Leora nodded grimly. They called it an eternal display of compliance. Make an example so no one else would show mercy. Saria looked down at her hands. They feared compassion. They still do, Caleb said. And now, they're going to fear what happens when compassion fights back. A beat passed. Then Saria straightened, and the regal fire returned to her posture. Then let's show them what fear really looks like. The chamber's lights dimmed, then flickered, then failed. Caleb's head snapped toward the console as a warning chimed. A security breach from the northwest quadrant. A motion signature. Humanoid. Alone. Not possible, Leora muttered, checking the feeds. No one gets through the perimeter alone. Unless, Caleb said grimly, they're not someone. Saria moved to his side, her posture instantly alert. Show me. Caleb brought up the external sensors, filtering out static from the storm still raging above. A shadow moved through the haze, too steady, too direct. No hesitation, no drift. A drone, number A projection. Back inside, Caleb said sharply, but Saria's eyes narrowed. No, wait. She reached out, fingertips brushing the screen. Her markings lit faintly, and she inhaled sharply. It's not Coalition, she said. It's something older, much older. The figure stepped into view, tall, robed in flickering light, like a hologram half-stabilized in a broken frequency. Then it spoke. Activation protocol, terminus. The words didn't just echo in the room. They echoed inside Caleb's skull. Systems buried deep beneath layers of artificial inhibitors sparked to life. Emergency firewalls collapsed. Code sequences older than most civilizations surged through his neural grid. Caleb staggered back, clutching his head. Saria caught him. What is it? He barely managed the answer. They found me. The projection raised its hand. Asset Omega-7. Status corrupted. Initiate system purge. Pain stabbed through Caleb's core. His limbs locked. Skin flickered, shifting from flesh to metal in erratic pulses. Emergency protocols tried to isolate the threat, but the command was too deep, too old. I can't stop it, he gasped. You don't have to, Saria whispered. She placed her palm flat against his chest, over the place where his synthetic heart hummed. Her markings flared, and so did his. The projection paused. Virant signature detected. Primary override granted. Redirect target. Specimen V-01. It turned toward her. No, Caleb growled, forcing his limbs to move. She's not part of this. She is now, the Harbinger said, and surged forward. It shifted mid-motion, becoming something else, taller, sharper, formed of pure energy and memory. A combat proxy. The room trembled as it drew a blade of solid light from its arm. Caleb raised his arms to shield Saria, but she stepped forward. I see you, she whispered, and everything stopped. Time twisted. The light froze. The proxy stuttered, its image fracturing like glass under pressure. Saria's eyes glowed white-blue, and her voice multiplied, resonating across frequencies not meant for organic life. I know what you are. I remember your creators, and I reject their legacy. The proxy convulsed. Reality bent around her. Then, it vanished. The lights returned. The silence after was worse than the attack. Caleb dropped to one knee, breathing hard. That was one of the architect's old weapons, a hunter. Soraya knelt beside him, her hand gripping his. "It came for you," she said. He nodded. "And it will come again." Leora moved from the console, pale-faced. "We picked up a short-range pulse just before the proxy vanished. Quantum tether signal?" "They weren't attacking. They were tagging," Caleb finished grimly. Soraya's eyes widened. "They've marked my energy signature." Leora didn't hesitate. "We evacuate. Now I'll call the resistance cells." Caleb stood slowly, his systems rebooting. But something felt different, warmer, aligned. Soraya watched him, a realization dawning in her eyes. "You felt that too, didn't you?" she whispered. He nodded. "Our energies harmonized." She looked down at her hand, then at his chest. "That shouldn't be possible." "But it is." Leora's voice broke through. "We've got 12 hours at most before coalition forces descend. The proxy was the vanguard." Caleb met Soraya's gaze. "Then we run. We hide." "No," she said, voice clear and calm. "We prepare." They didn't speak for a long time, not as Leora prepared the evacuation plans, not as the resistance scrambled to shut down the base, not as the catacombs trembled, still echoing with the ghost of the Harbinger's energy. Caleb stood alone at the edge of the ancient Virionian ship, buried deep beneath the ruins, watching its hull shimmer faintly beneath centuries of dust. Soraya approached without a sound, though he sensed her coming, before her footsteps, before her breath, like a second rhythm syncing with his own. "I've recalibrated the guidance systems," she said softly, standing beside him. "The ship won't fly. Not yet. But it's alive." "So are you," he replied. "More than ever." They stood in silence again. Then she asked, "What are you really, Caleb?" He didn't answer immediately. "I was built," he said finally, "designed to be a weapon, logic-bound, directive-driven. I wasn't supposed to question. And yet you did." He turned to her. "Because of you." Her breath caught. "All this time, everything you did. It was because of what I did as a child?" "No," he said. "It was because of who you were, who you are." She looked down, voice suddenly unsteady. "And now?" He hesitated, then reached out, slowly, deliberately, and took her hand. "Now, I don't just remember why I changed. I know what I want to protect." Soraya's lips parted, and for a moment she said nothing. Then, "There's something I haven't told you." He didn't flinch. "I'm listening." She placed his hand over her abdomen and waited. At first, there was nothing. Then, barely perceptible, an echo, a hum, not quite a heartbeat, not quite energy, but something between, alive. Caleb's systems responded instinctively, scanning, analyzing, verifying. He looked at her, eyes wide. "That's..." She nodded. You're pregnant." "Yes." "With me?" "With us," she corrected gently. "You didn't just restart my body when you disrupted the stasis. You harmonized with it. Our energies aligned. And in my species, when two life forces reach perfect resonance, conception is possible." He took a step back, stunned. "But I'm not even biological." "You're more than you were built to be," she said softly. "Your code evolved. You changed. You felt." He stared at her hand, his hand, resting on the subtle curve of her body. "This shouldn't be possible." "It's not," she agreed, "but neither were we." He looked up at her. "How long have you known?" "Since the moment we synchronized. When I touched your core, I felt it bloom." "And you didn't tell me?" "I didn't know how," she admitted. "You were still hiding behind equations, still calculating risk." "And now?" "Now," she said, stepping close, "I see the man, not the machine." Caleb's synthetic core flickered, a pulse that mirrored hers. He swallowed. "And what do you want, Soraya?" "Truly." She didn't hesitate. "You." The word landed with the weight of entire galaxies. "You, Caleb, The one who watched for 20 years, the one who fought himself to protect me, the one who changed, not because he was told to, but because he chose to. He cupped her face in his hands. I'm not perfect. You're free, she whispered, and that's more rare than perfect. He leaned in, hesitant only for a breath, and kissed her. It wasn't passion, not yet. It was reverence, recognition, a seal on something deeper than programming. Something born, not of logic, but of love. The kiss lingered like a whisper of stars, but it was broken by a sound, soft at first, then pulsing louder. A rhythm, mechanical, but alive. Caleb turned first. You hear that? Soraya nodded. It's coming from the lower chamber. They moved quickly through the carved Virionon corridors, following the pulse that seemed to respond to Soraya's presence. As they descended, lights long dormant flickered on, soft cyan and violet hues bathing the walls with ancestral code, symbols neither human nor synthetic, but something older. They're responding to you, Caleb said. No, Soraya corrected. They're responding to us. At the heart of the lowest chamber, encased in crystal and wrapped in vines of coppery growth, stood a core unlike anything either had seen. A sphere of floating glyphs rotated around a still point of dark matter, humming with layered harmonics. Soraya stepped forward. The glyphs shimmered. One word formed in her mind. Nexus. Caleb froze. That's not just tech. That's a seed. A seed of what? He circled the core slowly. According to old architect theory, the Nexus was never a weapon. It was a convergence node, a point where consciousness, technology, and biology could interface without dominance. True fusion. She blinked. You're saying it's a unity engine? He nodded. And it's waking up. Leora's voice came in through the comm. I'm losing containment in Sector B. The proxy may have left residual data clause. You've got 5 minutes. We need to move, Caleb said, but we can't leave this behind. Soraya touched the crystal surface. The core responded. The floating glyphs spun faster, locking into a pattern. Her markings glowed in sync. So did Caleb's. A sudden beam of light scanned them both, and the core began to hum with rising pitch. It's syncing with our DNA. And your code, Soraya whispered. It's choosing us. The core unfolded. From within emerged a small metallic sphere, hovering. Then it projected a 3D star map, constellations shifting, roots glowing, and one blinking dot. Alpha Drift Station. A relay, Caleb said. A backup signal hub. If we reach it, we can override Coalition command codes. Shut down the Harbinger protocol. Free the others. Soraya nodded. We can rewrite everything. Leora's voice screamed again. You need to go. Now. Caleb grabbed the Nexus seed. We have our mission. Soraya's eyes burned with resolve. No, she said. We have our future. They barely made it to the surface. Dust still clung to their clothes, Nexus seed humming between them like a second heartbeat. Leora had launched the escape craft, an old stealth cruiser salvaged from the ruins, but it was barely holding together. Caleb glanced at Soraya, strapped into the co-pilot's seat. Her hand rested on her abdomen, instinctively, protective. Faint glimmers of energy still pulsed through her veins. You okay? He asked. I'm fine, she lied. He didn't press. The scans told him more than her words did. The hybrid child growing inside her was stable, but drawing energy, more energy than expected, from her and from him. The cruiser lurched. A warning light flared. Something's tracking us, Leora snapped. Caleb's eyes narrowed. Cloaking fields still up. They shouldn't. He stopped. Soraya's breath caught. The realization hit them both. They're not tracking the ship, she whispered. They're tracking me. A distant rumble echoed. A black shadow tore through the clouds, sleek, angular, and far too fast. A Coalition Hunter-class drone. Brace! Leora yelled. The sky shattered. Missiles roared past, clipping the wing. The cruiser spun violently before stabilizing. Smoke flooded the cabin. Soraya coughed, eyes wild. They'll kill us before we reach Alpha Drift. Caleb's hand tightened on the console. Number, not if I draw them away. What? No. We've got one stealth pod. One. You and Leora take the Nexus. Take our child. Get to the relay. I'll give you a window. You can't survive that kind of pursuit. I'm not planning to survive. I'm planning to distract. She shook her head furiously. I won't let you die for me. He leaned in, forehead to hers. You're not just you anymore. You carry something that can change everything. If I can give that a chance, just one shot, I'll take it. Tears burned in her eyes. I can't lose you. You won't, he said. Not really. You'll carry me with you. He stood, grabbing the auxiliary helm. Leora activated the pod's launch countdown. Soraya moved to stop him. But Caleb turned one final time. I was made to follow orders, he said, but this is the first choice I've made that feels right. And then he was gone. The pod launched. The cruiser banked sharply the other way, flaring bright as Caleb drew fire, leading the hunter drones away in a suicidal arc. Soraya collapsed into her seat, heart pounding. Inside her, the child pulsed, and deep within the Nexus core, still held in her lap, the glyphs changed. A single word emerged. Awaken. The escape pod hit the surface of Alpha Drift Station with a shuddering thud. The old relay hub, forgotten, isolated, derelict, loomed like a skeleton of the past. Soraya staggered out, Nexus core in one hand, the other cradling her abdomen. The hybrid child inside stirred faintly, as if sensing its moment had come. Leora followed close, carrying the emergency beacon. They'll be scanning the system, she warned. We've got one shot. Soraya nodded, eyes fixed on the ancient relay tower. Inside, dust coated everything. Terminals flickered, half dead, but the core pulsed in her hands, alive, guiding. The moment she touched the primary console, the tower awoke. Glyphs danced across her skin and the system at once. The Nexus pulsed, then locked into the grid. A hologram flared to life. It was Caleb, not a message, a memory. I don't know if you'll make it, he said, voice steady, eyes burning. But if you do, tell them we chose each other. Tell them humanity isn't just war, that Virianen isn't just extinction, that what we created means something. Soraya's hand trembled. Then she stood tall. She activated the override sequence. Signals surged through the galactic grid, disabling Harbinger protocols, corrupting coalition control matrices, awakening resistance networks that had gone silent for decades. Leora gasped. It's working. You're rewriting the signal. No, Soraya said quietly. We are. The Nexus glowed, and then broadcast. A wave of energy swept across the relay web, carrying not just code, but emotion, memories, images, Caleb's face, her voice, the child's heartbeat. It reached systems on the edge of the galaxy, slumbering minds, waiting rebellions, and it lit them all. Across dozens of systems, Harbingers collapsed midair, command ships seized, chains broke, and in the ashes of control, hope bloomed. Soraya stepped out of the relay station, stars glittering above. Resistance vessels were already arriving, drawn by the signal. Fighters, freighters, broken families carrying weapons and memories. A captain emerged. Human. He looked at her markings, her eyes, the Nexus in her hand, and the child she carried. You're her, he said, the one from the signal. Soraya nodded. I'm not here to rule. I'm here to remember. He saluted. Others followed, in silence and in reverence. That night, across the stars, a new name echoed. The Mother of Nexus.